Hey y'all, welcome to the Smoke Hour on KNTRY Radio Texas. My name is Mindy J. No need to know yours. Now today we are going to be talking about the album of the year, Cowboy Carter. And if you don't like it, go find yourself a jukebox. Y'all, we did it, Joe. We did it, Joe. Okay, Beyonce, Giselle Knowles Carter, better known as Beyonce, is now the recipient of an Album of the Year award for her masterpiece that is Cowboy Carter. Now, listen, when this happened, the Grammys were last night. Let me backtrack. The Grammys were last night. And I was so tired, y'all. And I was like, I can't stay up any later. I can't stay up to see if she wins. And it was kind of a wild experience because she ended up winning country album of the year, which she's become a meme, right? She didn't know she was going to win, which I didn't expect her to win country album of the year either, to be perfectly honest. But she did end up snagging that one. And then once she snagged that one, it was a lot of speculation like, oh, since she got that one, it's no way that she's going to get album of the year. They gave her that one to satisfy her. And then, that's going to be it. No more, right? Taylor Swift, that's who I would think would win album of the year. Not because I think that she deserved it necessarily, but because that's usually how we see things, right? But that didn't happen. Not only did Beyonce win country album of the year, I believe they said she was the first Black person to win in a country category in 50 years, or in that specific country category in 50 years. I don't know. I have to fact check that. But I know that she was I think the only solo person. Anyway, it's been some years, way too long for a genre that we created because, hello, it's Black History Month. It is Black History Month, and that's what makes this even sweeter, right? But after winning everything with the country album of the year, she then went on to win album of the year, AOTY. She did win, right? And people are mad, honey, but we ain't thinking about them. People are mad. I didn't know Billie Eilish had shooters like that. The girls are mad. And they're saying that Beyonce didn't deserve this. They're saying, like, I've heard some very outlandish things. I heard that she didn't deserve this, that she doesn't make albums. She just makes hits. Which, if you know anything about Beyonce in the slightest, she has criticized the music industry for people just trying to put out quick singles and not actually making full bodies of work, full albums for people to listen to. But today, I'm really not talking to you. I'm not talking to the people that are mad that she won, right? They're mad. They voted for a convicted felon, but you're mad because you said Jay-Z has allegations, so therefore Beyonce shouldn't win, okay? I know what you are. You haven't listened to Cowboy Carter, not one track. You might have heard Texas Hold'em and 16 Carriages because those were radio singles. Haven't listened to the album, but you're just convinced that she did not deserve to win. Okay, I'm not talking to you because I know what you are. If you just don't like Beyonce, you don't even know why. You don't like Beyonce, you just, anything that's tied to her, you don't want to hear about it. I'm not talking to you because I know what you are, okay? I'm talking to my girls, the Beehive and the Beehive only, because the Beehive is buzzing, baby. Or I'm talking to people who may have not listened to this album, but wants to know a little bit more about why it absolutely deserved to win album of the year. So let's chat for a minute, shall we? First of all, let's take a minute and backtrack. This is obviously about Beyonce, but shout out to her work husband, Kendrick Lamar, as well, because, baby, he did his thing. The big three of the Grammys, which the Grammys, it's like 4 categories that is really like, y'all, my dog is learning, sit. right now because the way he jumps up on me when I'm trying to do stuff. But anywho, where were we at? Oh, like I said, it's Black History Month. The Beyonce's work husband, which is funny because I think her ex work husband is the one who got dissed, but nonetheless, her new work husband, okay, Kendrick Lamar, he took home Record of the Year and Song of the Year. So like I was saying, it's 3 or 4 that are like the big ones that you want to take home, which song, record, album of the year, and best new artist is like that honorable mention, right? So of those 4, the 3, record, song, and album, is between Kendrick and Beyonce. So Not Like Us won Song of the Year, and it won Record of the Year. And rightfully so. This, I know some of y'all are Aubrey's Angels, right? I know some of y'all are OVO down, but I like Drake, okay? That's my Scorpio sis. We're certified lovers, right? But at the end of the day, what Kendrick Lamar had to say, it was the message heard around the world. I'm telling you, I was in Costa Rica for my birthday, and it was this white man from Wisconsin in the pool with us and requested, because I had a little pool speaker, he requested that we play Not Like Us. Okay, and I know Drake had this lawsuit. I'm not really sure what's going on with that lawsuit now, but I know he was saying that things were inflated with this song. The streams were inflated. No, baby, that song was just that hot. And I think it's very interesting because the message of Not Like Us and the message of Cowboy Carter were very blackety black. And I don't think that people necessarily understood Kendrick's message as well as they should have, right? But that's okay. He still made it loud and clear for those of us who get it. If you know, you know. But Beyonce's album, Cowboy Carter, the way that she did this, I would dare say that this is her best album. Now, it's not my favorite album, right? Sonically, it's not my favorite album, okay? My favorite albums are a little controversial. My 1 and 2 are B-Day and Renaissance, right? Those are my favorite sonically. But I would dare say that this is neck and neck with Lemonade for her best album, I'm going to say this is her most cohesive album. Lemonade, I think, was just so well done. Both Lemonade and Cowboy Carter had a very specific story to blackness, to black womanhood, that a lot of people didn't just grasp right away. And I think that if you're not listening and you just want to dance, you may not grasp it. But that's why I'm here to talk about it. And before I get deep into Cowboy Carter, I also want to shout out AOTY for winning, Rap Album of the Year. Now, AOTY, I'm going to have to go in and really just try and sit with her work. I tried listening to Alligator. What is it called? I don't want to mess up the name of her album. Let's see. AOTY, Alligator Bites Never Heal, which is a mixtape, I believe. But she won Rap Album of the Year, which why people were mad at that, I'm not really sure. Her speech was really, really well done. But I've never really gotten into AOTY. But I'm going to try and give it a listen because she seems for the girls. I don't know. It just never really captured me. But that's not discrediting her. I can obviously tell she's very talented. She performed at the Grammys yesterday. And I'm going to get into it. I'm going to try and see what's up with Shorty. But getting into understand Cowboy Carter, you have to understand how this album came about. And I think that it's very interesting how everything kind of just worked out the way that it did. Which also, I forgot to mention, Beyonce is about to tour this album, and it's called the Chitlin Circus. She just released dates today in the cities, and she's not doing like a world tour where she's doing a whole bunch of cities and a whole bunch of dates, but she's just kind of doing specific cities in the US, and I believe she's doing London and Paris as well overseas. And it's the Chitlin Circuit, name of the tour, Cowboy Carter Chitlin Circuit Rodeo Tour, and very intentional with that, right? But let's get into how this came about. So it's funny that I mentioned, I think Lemonade and Cowboy Carter are two of her best albums because of the message there, because Cowboy Carter was birthed from Lemonade, right? At the bottom line, we have to examine our Black womanhood. We have to talk about how we make lemonade out of lemons that life has served us, right? To be Black is to understand that. But on the album Lemonade, she has a song called Daddy Lessons. And the song is basically talking about, you know, the things that she learned from her father. My daddy said shoot, right? Bang. That was controversial in the Beyonce bubble. We know, you know, it all ties together, right? My daddy said shoot. She performs, the way that the song is a very country song. She performs at the CMA Awards with the Chicks, right? Formerly known as the Dixie Chicks. She performs with them, which they're notoriously disliked by the country community because they are more liberal, right? So she performs with them, gets the CMAs, their highest ratings, right? And she's just kind of rejected by country. They are mad. The way the girls are mad right now, oh, Beyonce's not country, Beyonce's not country. They were mad back then, pissed, right? Which makes this win even sweeter. But they were very, very mad about that. And from that, she births not only Cowboy Carter, but she birthed Renaissance, Cowboy Carter, and Act 3, which we don't know. A lot of us are speculating rock. A lot of us are speculating this because it's kind of like she's playing into these genres that we as Black Americans have created, but are kind of pushed out of, right? Country, look at the way people are treating country, even though Black people created this genre, right? The banjo came from Africa, a huge part of country music, right? But we've been pushed out of that. We were pushed out of house music, out of the techno music. We're pushed out of that, even though it was Black people, Black queer people who created that sound. And rock music, right? Black people created that sound, but we have been pushed out of the genre. So maybe she's gonna pay homage to that. I don't know. We'll have to wait and see. But basically, originally she was supposed to release Cowboy Carter first. Cowboy Carter is Act 2, but Renaissance was Act 1. She chose to release Act 1 first because it was right after the pandemic, and she felt that we needed to dance, we needed some fun, we needed things to be light. I think that she was very right in doing that, because from 2020 that to the time that came out, which was in 2022, to the time that we went to the Renaissance World Tour in 2023, things were very, very heavy, and we needed that love and that light in that community, right? So then in 2024 at the Grammys, she sports this, y'all, my dog, I don't know how he got tangled up in the cords, but whatever. Anyway, keep losing my train of thought. But like I was saying, at the Grammys in 2024, Beyonce comes sporting this platinum blonde wig, right? I think she wore did she wear the cowboy hat too? Yeah, she had the cowboy hat, the little, what is that called? A bolo tie? She had the whole country get up going, right? And then a couple weeks later at the Super Bowl, she does a Verizon commercial and basically releases that she is about to put out a country album, which we now know is Cowboy Carter. And the first singles that she released were Texas Hold'em and 16 Carriages. And one thing I have noticed about Beyonce, she's always going to release her kind of pop, I'm not gonna say pop, but like popular culture, things that are kind of a little bit more mainstream. She always releases that first, right? So with this one, it was Texas Hold'em. She releases one that's that pop, mainstream radio play type of tune, and then she releases one that's kind of like more emotional, more of a little bit more of a deep cut. So with this one, it was Texas Hold'em and 16 Carriages. And then with Renaissance, she had just did Break My Soul. And before that, like she's done overtime, like 1+1 plus Best Thing I Never Had. She's done Single Ladies plus If I Were a Boy. That's kind of her formula. Or if she doesn't do both, she just releases like the one that's going to be the radio hit, right? And sometimes what I've noticed is people, once they hear that, they're not interested in listening to anything else, because when you actually listen to the album, everything makes sense as to why she released it the way that she did. It's all part of everything, but people get kind of turned off from that, I guess. Anywho, once a lot of people heard the Texas Hold'em, they wrote this album off. They decided that Beyonce wasn't country, and it wasn't just, others. It was black folk too. Beyonce is in country. She's cosplaying. She's doing anything for money, which, first of all, why would Beyonce have to go to country music to make money? I don't think that she needs to do that. But everything was said about her, and a lot of people didn't take the time to actually tune in, right? But if you actually listen to Cowboy Carter, it is a testament of Black resilience. It speaks to the Black experience, being Black American, being a part of the foundation of this country, being about part of the foundation of music, and being kind of pushed out. And I think it was just very intentional the way that she even did the track list, right? If you listen, she starts off the album with American Requiem, comes out of the gate swinging. Now, American Requiem is a song basically speaking to how she feels, how it feels to be Black and American, how she felt when people criticized her about being country, right? Because when Beyonce first hit the scene in the 90s, people said she spoke too country, right? They talked about the way she talked, because a lot of people will associate being Southern or being country to being dumb, and that's not necessarily true, right? But that's kind of what she faced, being a woman from Texas. Now she's trying to step into that space and recognize her roots and all of that, and people are like, oh, she's not country, right? She speaks to the fact that this country is a beautiful house that we never got to settle in as Black people. We never had the opportunity to live the American dream in the way that it was supposed to be lived, right? She also speaks to the fact that her father or grandfather was the Moonshine Man, which she released her Whiskey Sir Davis. A lot of people said that was a cash grab, but I think all of this is intentional, right? She speaks to that. She speaks to, the fact that her family is from Alabama and Louisiana. If that ain't country, tell me what is, right? So that's kind of where American Requiem comes from. It then this goes into Blackbird. Now, Blackbird is where if you watch the Beyonce Bowl on Netflix, that's where she had Tanner Adele. I want to get everybody's name right. Hold on. Okay, she had Brittany Spencer, Raina Roberts, Tierra Kennedy, and Tanner Adele on there. And at the Beyonce Bowl, they performed with her. And Blackbird is a song by the Beatles, but it was specifically written back in the 60s for Black women, because bird, I believe, is a British term for woman. So Blackbird, fly. So it was very intentional with what she was doing. You have only waited for this moment to arrive, right? These women who are Black in this country space, they have been going hard, but they needed someone like a Beyonce to get a little bit more attention on them, right? Because that's the thing that people don't like about Beyonce, is Beyonce can move in every room, right? Whether you like her or not, she is Beyonce, right? I need something big, Beyonce. And so she's able, when her name is attached to you, people are going to tune in, right? And we see her be very intentional with people who are up and coming, and also honoring Linda Martell, right? But we'll get to that a little bit later. Let's keep going. So then we get to 16 Carriages. 16 Carriages is basically speaking to her her come up, right? Beyonce is not someone who is a one hit put her on the map. She worked very hard. She had to grind to get where she is. And she speaks to kind of the things she's watched, the struggle she had to watch. But she speaks to legacy in that song. No matter what, she'll remember me. Legacy, right? And then we get into Protector, which I think was very intentional because her legacy is her children. And on Protector, we hear Rumi asking her to sing a lullaby. And basically in Protector, she speaks to, even though someday you're going to shine on your own, I'll be your projector. I'll be your protector, right? And we see her babies starting to shine now, specifically Blue Ivy, right? And she's very protective of that. And I know that there's the argument that your legacy, your children are not your legacy, they're their own legacy, right? But your children are a part of your legacy. And, you know, just as our kids are moving into that space, she's very intentional that all of the things I went through in 16 Carriages, I'm going to protect you from that. Those are not things that you're going to have to deal with, right? And then we go into My Rose, which I believe for those who had the original CD, who had the vinyl that are now kind of limited edition collector's items, that was called My Sir, which speaks to her son, Sir, but now it's called My Rose. And I think that both of these, going from 16 Carriages to Protector and to My Rose, it's just her speaking to her children, you know, and we're seeing that side of her as a mother, but everything that she's done, everything with her legacy, you will remember her as not only this star, but you will remember her as a mother and everything that she did for her kids, right? Then we get to the Smoke Hour with Willie Nelson, which I want to side note. Why did people try to sit and act like Beyonce was going around Nashville trying to beg people, country artists, to be on her album? First of all, if Beyonce was asking people to be on the album around Nashville, they would have did it. They would have did it. But she had Willie Nelson on here. She has Dolly Parton on here. And she had Linda Martell on here. I don't think she needs to go to Nashville to find up and coming artists to be on her project. I think she has legends on here. But anyway, we have the Smoke Hour. And I want to speak to the Smoke Hour specifically because she leaves us a message in there. And that's one thing about Beyonce. A lot of people will say, oh, she doesn't speak to her fans, but she speaks to her fans through her music. So on the first Smoke Hour, the lyrics say, welcome to the Smoke Hour on KNTRY Radio, Texas. You know my name, no need to know yours. Now for this next tune, I want y'all to sit back, inhale, and go to that good place your mind likes to wander off to. And if you don't want to go find yourself a jukebox. Right? So then we see her go into Texas Hold'em. And I think that was very intentional, right? If you don't want to go on this journey with us, you don't have to. I think the first few albums are kind of just speaking to why she's doing this, who she is, right? As a woman, as a wife, as a mother, right? And then we're getting into Texas Hold'em, which she's kind of going into that traditional what you think of when you hear country music, right? So we go from Texas Hold'em, then we go to Bodyguard. And it's the way that people would have loved the song Bodyguard if it was anyone but Beyonce, but y'all hate Beyonce, so y'all didn't listen to the song. But nonetheless, she goes to Bodyguard. Then we get to Dolly P, which is basically Dolly Parton, you know, hey, Miss Honeybee, it's Dolly P. And she speaks to, you know, it's like an intro to Jolene, because on this album, Beyonce covers Jolene, which is a Dolly Parton hit, which Dolly Parton, I'm sure, was very excited about because Whitney Houston did I Will Always Love You, and we know how big of a hit that was, so I'm sure Dolly was very excited for this, right? But she does Jolene, and in this rendition of Jolene, it's not the same kind of like, please, Jolene, leave my man alone. I'm warning you, don't mess with my man. And I think that it's important that it's the way that this black woman is approaching this situation versus Dolly, which I love Dolly, but how this white woman would approach it, right? Kind of like, please leave my man alone. Like, nah, leave my man alone. But a lot of people had criticisms about that, but I think that art imitates life. So if I'm going to do a rendition of Jolene, I have to make it relevant to my life. And we know that that's how Beyonce coming behind hers, right? But then we go into daughter. And I think daughter is a direct speaking to daddy lessons, right? Because in daddy lessons, you know, with his right hand on the Bible, he, what is it? Right hand on the Bible. He held onto his rifle. My daddy said, shoot. I'm sure those are not the exact lyrics, but that's kind of the speaking to in daddy lessons. When we get to daughter, she specifically is singing about, you know, kind of being cold, right? Colder than Titanic water. It's a song about, you know, murder. It's a song about high emotion. And she says, and the lyrics, they say, I'm nothing like my father. Right, but I'm colder than Titanic water. I'm just like my father. Again, those are not the exact lyrics, but I think that though that plays back to that moment. Like, my daddy says shoot, right? And she's talking about murder. My dad taught me, right? We know that Matthew Knowles was her manager for years, right? They had a lot of differences, but her dad taught her how to move with these type of people, right? How to move in this industry, how to play this game. My daddy said, shoot, bang. That's what we on. Okay. Then we get from daughter. Also, I want to mention on daughter, she sings opera. She reminds you that she's classically trained. And I think that's intentional too, because people play with her like she can't sing, or she, you know, she's this and that she's that. She speaks to that. Her father made sure that she was trained classically. I'm colder than Titanic water if I have to be, right? And she reminds us. But then from daughter, we get to spaghetti, right? Y'all, my daughter is knocked out after he was delirious. That's what it was. So worried about me and what I'm doing. He knew he was tired. But anyway, then we get to spaghetti, right? And at the beginning of spaghetti, we have Linda Martell speaking. Now, if you're not familiar with Linda Martell, she was the first Black woman to ever perform at the Grand Ole Opry, which is like country music's stage, right? And she was kind of pushed out of the genre because of the fact that she was a Black woman. They loved her music until they saw her, right? And then it's like, oh no, this Black woman can't be in country, can't be in this genre, right? And it speaks to how a lot of people feel about Beyonce, where you would love this song if it was someone else, but you don't want this Black woman, this Black woman here. And she was very intentional in paying homage to Miss Martell with this project, right? And also, kind of you see the parallels. But anyway, Miss Martell says, genres are a funny little concept, aren't they? Yes, they are. That Beyonce Virgo shit, that's Shabuzi speaking, right? She lets us know, yeah. Once, you know, I was raised by a Virgo. Once they get their mind set on something, they're not going to just let it go, right? So, in theory, they have a simple definition that's easy to understand, right? But in practice, well, some may feel confined. I think that it's it's very, very interesting that, you know, Miss Martell is the one speaking to this, but she was one of the ones that they tried to confine, right? And then in spaghetti, we have Beyonce rapping, and it's kind of like a mix of genres. I believe they said it was, it had some callbacks to Brazilian funk is what it's called. I could be wrong. Feel free to correct me if I am. But she basically is rapping, right? So it's a mixture, kind of like spaghetti, a mixture of genres, right? But I ain't no regular singer, so come get everything you came for, right? I'm going to give you all of this. I'm going to give you all of this flavor, right? Whether you like it or not. So then from spaghetti, we get to alligator tears, right? And alligator tears is kind of a more calm, like chill thing. But what she's speaking to, a lot of people say she's speaking to the way that the alligator tears of white women. I don't know if that's necessarily true. I really don't know the exact meaning of this. If she's speaking to the alligator tears of people crying about what she's doing, if she's calling to the tears of white women and getting stuff kind of done in sense of getting people out of here. I'm not really sure exactly what alligator tears is speaking to. But then we get into Smoke Hour 2, which is also Willie Nelson. This one, he says, you're tuned into KNTRY Radio Texas, home of the real deal. And if there's one thing you can take away from our set today, let it be this. Sometimes you don't know what you like until someone you trust turns you on to some real good shit. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is why I'm here. Up next on the Smoke Hour is Just for Fun by Beyonce. You're welcome, right? And I think she's very intentional. That's that message for us. You think you don't like country because you don't know what country is as it was, right? You only know country as what it has been portrayed as today. But sometimes it takes someone like me to let you know that you have every right to be here. You have everywhere to take up space here, whether you like it or not, right? I got to put you onto some good shit so you know what it is that is out there for you, right? You have a right to be here. From Smoke Hour 2, we go into Just for Fun, which is her song with Willie Jones. I can never forget Willie Jones because that just is such a deacon name, right? So then, I'm going back home just for fun, right? So it's like she's speaking to, I'm just having fun with this shit. And I think that's what makes Beyonce the artist that she is. A lot of times she's just having fun. She's enjoying herself. She's enjoying her craft. Yes, she's a perfectionist, but she has fun with this, right? Then we get into Two Most Wanted, another Grammy award-winning song with her and Miley Cyrus, right? And then we go into Levi's Jeans with Post Malone, which I want to pause right here because I didn't hear anybody complaining about Post Malone being in the country album of the year category. Did he win? No. But nobody was complaining about that. Nobody was screaming from the rooftops, he's not country. But they are screaming that from the rooftops about Beyonce. I know something about you. But nonetheless, Two Most Wanted and Levi's Jeans. I think that she was very intentional in using Miley Cyrus and Post Malone because these are two people who have dibbled and dabbled in hip hop, which is a genre just like country that was that was created by Black people. But at the end of the day, hip hop still is considered a Black genre where country is not. And while Miley Cyrus and Post Malone dibbled and dabbled, right, they ultimately use that as kind of like a stepping stone in their career. And now, they have moved on, right? I think she was very intentional, like, okay, you want to dibble and dabble in our culture? Well, we're going to dibble and dabble in yours. And I think that she used that kind of as a way to be like, if you're going to get something from us, we're definitely going to get something from you. But both of them are great songs, right? In my opinion. Then we get to Flamenco, and then we get to the Linda Martell show. I like Flamenco. That's kind of, I think, the play to more like Tejano and more like the Latin and indigenous influences in country music. But then we get to the Linda Martell show, right? Which is another message for us. On the Linda Martell show, Linda Martell tells us, ladies and gentlemen, this particular tune stretches across a range of genres. And that's what makes it a unique listening experience. Yes, indeed. It's called Yaya, right? So the whole point is that you can't limit these genres, right? You can't limit what fits into into my space, right? Or what space I fall into. It's an over array of genres, but it's still our shit, right? But anyway, then we get into Yaya, which Yaya, that is really kind of where we are calling home to the chitlin circuit. It gives that type of vibe from the 60s and 70s, that kind of, you know, yeah, right? It's something that I could hear Tina Turner performing, that type of feel, right? And I could also hear like I don't know, Elvis would have stole the fuck out of the song. That's what it sounds like. I'll put it that way, right? But then from Yaya, we go into Oh Louisiana, which is a Chuck Berry song that she has, you know, played with, right? And I think that she was intentional in using that Chuck Berry song because Chuck Berry is kind of who, you know, ushered in rock and roll. And he doesn't necessarily always get the credit, but he did, right? So I think she was very intentional in including that, right? As we go on, right, we are seeing kind of a shifts in the, like, a little bit of the genre, right? And we're calling home to, that's why a lot of people are saying rock, like the Chuck Berry, rock and roll, who knows, right? Then we get to Desert Eagle. Now, Desert Eagle is one of them. I cannot wait to hear her perform live. I seriously can't, right? She says soft kisses on some fat lips. But we have Desert Eagle, we have River Dance, we have Two Hands to Heaven, and we have Tyrant. And I think all of these songs are kind of playing more to like that black space in country, where these are more a little bit more fun, in my opinion. Sorry, these are a little bit more fun. These are a little bit more, have a little bit more soul, right? And it's a little bit more palatable if you don't really care for like the classic country sound. And then before we get to the last one, which is Amen, we get How Sweet Honey Buckin', right? And it's basically like I'm coming home, right? And that one is with Shabuzi, and it's kind of Yulo. I saw people dancing to it like Buckin'. She did also perform that at Beyonce Bowl, but you know, Buckin' and that style of like majorette dance, right? And then we end with Amen. And Amen is kind of a flip of American Requiem. So we kind of are finishing where we started at, right? It's a loop almost. And I think that's very relevant to what's going on in this country today. And there's been so much conversation surrounding Cowboy Carter, and I'm just rambling and I could go on for days about this. But you know, people have called her a propagandist, and I spoke to that, right? Black American people, Black Southern people, we have the right to be patriotic for some shit that we built. Argue with your mammy, not me, right? We have the right to be patriotic, but people say she was a propagandist, which if she was a propagandist, Kamala Harris would have won. But it's kind of like just a cycle. We think, you know, we're making progress and things go back to the way that they once were. You know, a whole lot of red and that white and blue. But this album was very cohesive. She was very intentional with this album. It was a full body of work. And that's not to say that the other women, and I don't know if it was any men in the category, but that's not to say the Billie Eilishes and the Sabrina Carpenters and the Taylor Swifts were not good. I'm not going to speak to their album because I didn't really listen to them. I did listen to Billie Eilish's album. It was good, but it's not anything from her that I haven't heard before, for real. It's funny to me, so many people have so many negative things to say about Cowboy Carter, and I know they didn't listen. But every year when Beyonce would lose Album of the Year, it was this argument that, oh, well, just because it didn't resonate with you or because you didn't listen to it doesn't mean it wasn't the best album. Just because, you know, your fave didn't win didn't mean the right person didn't win. And now when we're seeing that this Black woman is winning, you have every reason to why she didn't deserve to win. And you haven't even heard the album. And just because it didn't resonate with you or just because your fave didn't win doesn't mean the right person didn't win, right? It doesn't. This was such a great album. she really spoke to her roots here, and I encourage people to actually listen to it, and not listen to it just because I told you to listen to it. Listen to it with some intention, and you might actually like it. But I'm very excited for her to be going on tour. I think this is a space that we are. People said, you know, she's not reading the room by going on tour. Baby, every day I'm hearing about an executive order. Every day something's getting signed. Every day I'm like, what am I going to hear about today? What tariff am I going to hear about today? We need some joy. More overly, we need some Black joy, right? It's Black History Month. They're trying to take away DEI, which we'll talk about that later, right? We'll talk about that later as someone who has worked in the DEI space, right? But this ain't no DEI win, baby. This is greatness being recognized. But if you haven't listened to the album, I encourage you to do so. You know, you might like it. Sometimes it takes someone you trust to put you on to some real good shit. But we'll talk more, y'all. I got some stuff coming out as far as content for Black History Month. I'm so excited to talk more with y'all, but had to give it up to my girl BB one more time because, baby, the beehive is buzzing. All right, y'all. Bye-bye.